We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the HaltingWinter podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the HaltingWinter podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. My guest on the podcast today is Christopher Wren, County Administrator in Newaygo County, Michigan. Christopher, welcome to the podcast. It is a pleasure to have you on today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I look forward to being out in Michigan in just a couple weeks. I'm sure when this airs, I think I'll still be a week out before when this airs. But I'm coming out to speak to the Michigan. Let's see if I can get this right. Michigan Association of County Administrative Officers.
You got it.
Yeah. The conference you guys have. Really looking forward to spending time with specifically county leaders. I do a lot of speaking for the ICMA state chapters, which is both city leaders and county, but just county. It's going to be really unique to feel the vibe of just county administrative officers. So I can't wait to do that. Obviously, April was National County Awareness Month. I don't know if we actually made anything aware of what counties is. That's why I love this podcast is let's shine the spotlight, and not just the spotlight. Sometimes it's just the flashlight in a dark corner to go like, does anyone really know what a county does? So I can't wait to unpack all of the insights from your journey specifically is unique because you started out in municipal leadership in city. You were an assistant city manager, then a city manager. Then you went to the private sector, and now at Newaygo County as their administrator. So it's going to be a fascinating journey with a lot of insights from different places, I think, that will really speak to the audience of both young people who are considering local government as a profession, as well as those currently serving. But before we get to the professional side, let's do what we do on the HaltingWinter podcast. Take us back to the beginning and kind of tell us about where you were born and kind of the childhood that shaped you and spearheaded this amazing journey you had.
Sure. Well, I was actually born in London, Ontario, and then I moved over with my family at a fairly young age. I think I was about 6 at the time. We moved over to Port Huron, Michigan, right across the border. And then, I kind of hung out through high school and whatnot on the east side of the state, which I'm now told is the wrong side of the state, being in West Michigan. Went to university at Oakland University and was pretty lost in my path. I was driving a beer truck at the time, which at 21 is a great job, but probably not at 51. So I actually took a short credit, like a 2-credit career orientation class. And one of the speakers was a city manager in the city of Fenton, as you mentioned. And at the end, he said, hey, if anyone's interested, I have an internship opening up. And I said, well, geez, I didn't even know city management was a profession at the time. I really didn't. My father was always very civic orientated and very civic club orientated, president of the Lions for years. And I got stuck driving an old rusty fire truck in parades for him and so forth. But never really gave much thought into public service, for that matter. My undergraduate degree was in political science. Really didn't know what to do with that. I'll be honest, I kind of fell into it when I chased a very pretty young lady into class one day and ended up marrying her. So it was the right chase. But so I said, hey, I'm interested in an internship. Why not? So I started January 2nd of 2001. I know I look young and spry, and you're thinking, wow, 25 years ago. But so that's kind of how it all started. I started out as an intern there, and actually was fairly quickly asked to become the assistant manager. Kind of a side story, I was unable to become the assistant city manager due to a charter provision that required all department heads to be U.S. citizens. I was not a U.S. citizen at the time. So I started that process. So I was the assistant to the city manager in the interim. Then once I got my citizenship, became a department head there. So,
Oh, okay, this is fascinating. Okay, let's go back a little bit.
Sure.
Even before Oakland, when you're growing up, you said again your dad is civic minded. Yep. The Lions Club. Again, you're driving the beater car in the parade. I can imagine, growing up, similar realities there. But yeah, it just doesn't. My dad was, he was a local firefighter. He was a board commissioner for the firefighter. I mean, all these things, and yet I just had no idea. It just never dawned on me that this was like a profession. Local government was a profession. So as you're growing up, what were you interested in? You said poli-sci was kind of because you're chasing the gal into the classroom, and it ends up. And I think I just had a conversation before we recorded this with Ron Holyfield, famous city management guru here in the States, and we were talking about that, just how young people do not know that local gov is an option in a profession. And I think we're missing a huge window because the younger generation specifically are very mission-minded. They want to do something that they can actually see makes a difference in their life. And I think what's better than local government that actually gives you the modern way to water, your sewer, your streets, all these modern realities, so you see it. What were you though? Let's go back. What were you interested in? Was it just the beer truck? What was Christopher interested in? What were you thinking maybe your future was going to be?
My dad was an entrepreneur and always had a number of small businesses going and so forth. So I was kind of interested in that path a little bit. It was a little bit into law, which kind of coincided with political science path. But truthfully, Seth, I really didn't know. I was just kind of probably the standard college student, just trying to find my identity professionally and find a career path that suited me. Intervention of Mike, the city manager, who sometimes I still curse for getting me involved in this profession, but we still remain close friends, and I still consider him a strong mentor. So, I never in a million years would have thought public service, local government was an option. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And there just isn't exposure, all through high school and even in college. It's all state and federal level government affiliation, right? That's what you learn about. You don't talk about local leadership. You don't talk about the fact that every day local leadership has an impact on your life, whether it's water, sewer, like you said, garbage pickup, streets, roads, internet, broadband, you name it. It all starts at the local level. So I think that's something our profession, county administrators, city management professions, we all need to continue growing that exposure for those who are doing just exactly what I did, maybe seeking a profession that they didn't know existed. A side story, I recall my very first city manager conference in a room full of, my peers. And we were talking about this exact topic. And they said, everyone, under 50, stand up, under 40, stand up, under 30, stand up, under 25. Like I was the only one who stood up under age 35. And I think that was telling as well. I had a room full of people staring at me like, well, here's our competition. But I think it was also very telling even back then how little the profession had involved youth or younger generations, those who are starting out in the career.
I think it is the double-edged sword of, just like you said, when we think about politics, we think about state, federal. Basically, we're trying to think about electeds, because that's what we do as regular people. We're told to vote, and so we think about the elected path is really the professional path, and the other side of that sword is then administrators, city, county, kind of are in this unique thing where they're giving the wins to the elected, to their staff, and they're kind of trained even by the ICMA code of ethics. It's not about you, right? Well, if it's not about you, who's telling the story to say, here's this position that needs, this is CEO positions. These are executive level positions running cities and counties. They're desperately needed positions and vital positions. And yet no one knows. I always tell this story, but I'll say it again just for a new audience, for Michigan listeners. I had a friend, I was a pastor for the last 10 years. And the city manager of Lacey, the town next to Olympia, went to the church, was a good friend. And I think I knew of what he was, but I had no idea. And now here's what I do. I give my whole life for city manager. It's just so interesting that, just a lack of awareness. So what can we do there, right? I love this. So go back to, what was the name of the city manager in Fenton at the time?
Mike Seneco, yeah.
So Mike, was he just a guest speaker in a class? Did he do the class? Tell us and give us a little bit about that just to encourage.
Yeah, so the class kind of invited in professionals who had gone through a political science undergraduate program. Mike at the time was actually going through his master's program at the university at Oakland, and he was promoted to city management and was asked to come speak. And just because there was a lot of typical lawyers or lobbyists, a lot of staff for elected officials, state elected officials, like kind of the traditional paths I think people assume you go through a poli-sci or public administration, a lot of nonprofit speakers. And then here comes Mike, right? Talking about city management. Yeah.
Well, I love it. Just to encourage, if you are a city, county manager, administrator, here's these opportunities, right? To go in to, again, a poli-sci class that probably has no idea that local government's even an option. And it's like, and not only does Mike go there and open your eyes, but then there was an internship opportunity. And that's what I love about local gov, which I think we got to put the pedal to the metal on, is there are so many opportunities for internships, for part-time work. I mean, think about I've been engaging with a lot of park and recs people or interviewing people that's how they were an umpire, they were a lifeguard at the city pool. And all of a sudden that's how that led to more opportunity. And most of them, when they were working for the city, is these, park and recs didn't even know they were working for the city. It was like, oh, I guess what's the city of, I thought it was just the baseball league, And so, but tell us about, what was it like then when you first step into that internship and you're like, all of a sudden your eyes are kind of open to local gov. What was that like? Do you remember back?
Yeah, I was scared to death. I recall probably in the first couple of weeks, Mike had handed me a project. The city was buying a new fire truck, and he said, I need you to put the bid together to purchase a fire truck. What's a bid? Right? What do you mean buy a fire truck? You can't just go to Acme Fire Trucks down the road and pick one out. So I think that's just the scope, and probably more importantly is the right off the get, especially with a project like that, is the importance of overseeing the public dollar. Right? Government gets such a bad name. Oh, they're so wasteful. They just do this. They do what they want. And there's so much more behind the scenes. There's so much to it. And I recall talking to a professor who I didn't tell Mike I didn't know what a bid was. I went to school the next day and asked my professor, hey, what's a bid and what do I do here? So much more to protect the public dollar, right? So much behind the scenes. And local government touches so many aspects of your daily life, whether it's a fire truck, a police car, cemetery maintenance, street sweeping, garbage pickup. It's just such an array. And I think I also really fell in love very early on about the idea that every day is so different. Every day is a unique challenge, and still to this day, I would say that's my favorite part of my profession. This profession is the fact that there's no 2 minutes alike, right? Every phone call, every email, every time someone knocks on my door or walks in my office, I have no idea what's coming. You say we're talking about the lack of knowledge. I'm pretty sure my friends still think I'm the mayor of Newaygo County, right?
Yes.
But when we're on the golf course talking, and it's like, geez, you kind of do the same thing every day, don't you? And I don't. We don't. And I think that's a very attractive formula, especially for what I like to think of us all as overly educated, individuals that strive under that type of atmosphere. The stress can be great, obviously, but I think the stress also motivates and moves us forward. So,
yes, like you say. So, man, this what a great illustration of just the impact. And again, you're this young. Think back. So you're working on this bid, and you have no idea what you're doing. What kind of car were you driving at the time? Do you remember, like your personal?
I do. Yeah, it was a single cab S10. Right.
And you probably didn't buy that new, did you?
No. It was in rough shape, and I remember the girl I chased when I picked her up. She was not overly impressed with the cleanliness of the interior, right? So,
all of us classic Gen X kids, right? We were always, getting the hand down, or just to try to find something that would just run. And that's what I asked, because here you are. I'm sure if you were asked to go buy a city car, a car for city use, and you had to find a Ford Taurus or kind of the classic, whatever car, that would have felt overwhelming. And it's probably back then $35,000 price tag. Do you remember how much the bid on that fire truck was back then?
I think it was just under 80,000.
80,000. And again, now today, how much would that fire truck cost today?
400, right?
Minimum, right?
And it was actually a smaller truck. It was what do they call it? Like a brush truck, like for kind of a pickup truck, souped up pickup truck for smaller responses. But yeah, still, I mean, even in 25 years, it's just everything has changed so dramatically.
And I say that to say, I mean, it's one of the things we've had on a couple of people, city managers who came up through fire, and they're talking about, $800, $1 million for some of these pump truck things. And I say that now back. So the responsibility you mentioned, that stewardship, here you are, this young kid put into this internship, write up this bid. I bet the weight of $80,000, I got to make, that'd be like 8 million today. Like, I got to make sure this is I've crossed all the T's, I've dotted the I's. And again, you have no idea what you're doing. And yet I say that for all these kind of, just to give a picture of kind of what's going on in the responsibility, but also to say this is that there are people making these decisions. And you might say, oh, do we need a new fire truck? The people who had that fire truck show up to their emergency response would say you could have paid 5 more times for it. Right? We're not complaining about the price when it does the work. And the reality is, these trucks, these cars, these vehicles, that garbage truck that comes and picks up its route does that day after day after day. And think about a resident, think about yourself if you're listening. If your trash is missed for a week, you are upset, right? And that truck that, you pay a lot of money for, has to do it day after day after day after day. And so just to help people, because sometimes, I think we think, how in the world can it's just a truck, why can't it be the 30,000? And it's like, but you don't understand the scope of use for commercial, for local government, when they're using it day after day in these high, what would that be? High intensity kind of work. It's getting put through the work. It's not just, doing a commute to and fro. And so, oh man, anything else? So you're going to spend, you do become the assistant city manager. I
do. Yeah.
And
after I got my citizenship, which was interesting because I applied in August of 2001 for my U.S. citizenship. And, unfortunately, we all know what happened a month later, September 1st of 2001. So it was delayed a bit. But I became a assistant manager. U.S. citizen Christopher, assistant manager, and was there for about 8 years, and then made the move up to my first city management job. Yeah.
So, just for the national audience, Fenton, Michigan is about an hour northwest of Detroit, I believe. 12,000 population. And then when did you know, like, right from like the internship that you wanted to, when did you know that you wanted to become a city manager? And what was that process like as you were assistant city manager and then you become Linden? Did you do a bunch of interviews? Was Linden the only one? What was that kind of process like?
Yeah, I did a bunch of interviews. Mike, the city manager who mentored me through this process, was very encouraging to interview. I think that's another aspect of public administration that most don't recognize is the intensity of the interview process for our positions. It's not just going into a smoky back room and talking to one individual. It's public and it's can be very stressful and very time consuming. So I interviewed a lot. I tried to interview for pretty much everything I could, sometimes being offered and not really finding the fit. So not moving forward. But yeah, when Linden came available, it was kind of the stars aligned and it was time to move up, and I was confident in doing so. And then having developed a network of peers, it was very helpful as well. I mean, I think we rely on one another to this date a great deal, and that helped me tremendously.
I love this. So you're gonna become the city manager of Linden, Michigan, which is in the same county. Is it Genesee? Yep. Am I pronouncing that right?
Genesee. Yep.
Genesee County. And this is just on the other side of Highway 23 to the west. So it's close. I would imagine then the move, sometimes people become city managers when they move from assistant to city manager, will move states. They'll at least move counties. And so it's kind of like you got to kind of get the new identity of a place. And there's probably some similarities because it was so close in the same county. You kind of had some familiarity. But you said something there I think would be really helpful for the audience. You said that you took a lot of interviews and you didn't find a match. Could you speak to a minute just to encourage some people? Because I think sometimes, especially young people, for your first city management position, or maybe you're just in a bad situation, you want to get out, you jump into something that's not a good fit. How did you determine if it was a good fit? Maybe give some wisdom and insight to some people who are about to make a transition.
Well, I've always approached the interview process as a two-way interview. It's not just the board or the municipality interviewing us. It should be us interviewing them as well to make sure our management style or our personalities align and our goals and objectives align. I would hate to work for a municipality that wanted to stifle growth or to kind of not encourage growth and development and probably most importantly is support the administrator or manager to be that independent kind of entity running the organization. I think there are times and that elected boards try to micromanage or maybe intervene too often. And so again, I think that's very important to recognize that your management style, your personality should fit with the organization of which you're seeking to be employed by. Because if it doesn't, it's going to be a short trip. And I think recognizing the support as well. I mean, there are too many times where, for whatever reason, there's a controversial vote, and if it's a split vote, and you got to take that into account that you're walking into a much more difficult situation when you don't have a full board supporting you. Obviously, that can change over time, but I think, especially for younger professionals, finding that right fit to allow you to grow and develop your leadership capacities is vital.
I think there's a dichotomy of a young person maybe saying, well, I haven't been in the seat of a city manager yet, so I don't know maybe my leadership style or whatever. And I would say the other side of that is that's why spending time in leadership, I do a whole leadership development program on leadership awareness. Who are you? How do you function? Because if you don't have awareness, if you haven't focused on that and you get put into bigger and bigger leadership positions, the likelihood of you adapting to what's around you instead of being true to yourself. And I see that's what causes a lot of conflict for leaders is they end up trying to adapt to whatever's around them. And there's always adaptation that you need to, right? You need to have some skill there. But if you just totally are, adapting to whatever's around you and not really rooted in yourself, it can cause a lot of turmoil for you. And so I think that being aware, having a great mentor, it sounds like Mike really helped give some of that, shape some of that in you as you were coming up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, to this day, we just spoke last week. It's important to have that mentorship in a professional development. I still seek out mentorship and those in the profession that I respect, and I don't know everything. And I think that's a plight of our profession at times. We tend to think we do, but I do not. And I recognize that very early on. So
May is National Cities, Towns, and Villages Month, which means it's a great time to recognize the people doing the amazing work that keeps our communities running. The work most people rarely see, and if we're honest, hardly ever fully appreciate. It's the work that doesn't slow down, and yet it's the work that's expected to be done day in and day out. Right now, that work is getting a little bit easier. Across local government, teams are finding small but meaningful ways to operate more efficiently, not by replacing people, but by removing the kind of work that pulls them away from what matters most. Things like drafting routine responses, sorting through data, managing workflows that used to take far more time than they should. This is where AI is starting to make a real impact, and Tyler Technologies is helping local governments do exactly that with tools designed specifically for your world, practical, secure, and built to support your team without adding complexity. Tyler has put together a free ebook on AI and efficiency in local government, along with additional resources to help you explore what this could look like in your organization. Find them all at tylertech.com/winter to help you keep doing the work that matters most. That's tylertech.com/winter. Now, back to the conversation. I love it. And so you become the city manager of Linden in 2007. Like you have these dates in your story that I think are just interesting. Like you said, you're trying to become an American citizen. 9/11 happens. You become the city manager in 2007. We all know 2008 was the big housing crisis and all out. I'm sure that was real fun to be a city manager. First time in the seat with that. Tell us about it. What was it like to now be in the seat for the first time? And tell us a little bit about Linden. What's unique about that
sure, yeah.
city, that place?
Linden, again, is a smaller community, a very historical community, very rooted and kind of the history there. So that's always enjoyable when you're trying to develop and bring new ideas into a community that is stuck in the past at times. But I also had a great board. I had a great mayor at the time who was very supportive and very encouraging. We had some pretty major issues right off the get-go. First week I was there, first Friday I was there. I left a little early. Front office staff said, "All right, Chris, what's your protocol? Like, what if something happens? Do you want us to call you?" And I said, "Yeah." So if the town burns down, give me a call. So about 2 hours earlier, I get the call that the town's burning down. Of course, I thought they were joking. They were not. So we lost 11 businesses that Friday night. So sorry for the horrible pun, but, trial by fire, so to speak. But right off the get-go, we kind of, that situation obviously brought us, I think, together and helped develop my leadership very quickly. But more importantly, develop the realization that it's so important and to rely on your staff, to rely on your people, to rely on those who know what they're doing and not overmanage, not micromanage, not intervene, recognizing the time and the place for leadership and making sure things are moving forward, but also not getting in the way. And I think that's what I learned very quickly in Linden was what makes a successful manager, administrator, truly is the people you surround yourself with, truly is empowering those of which you depend upon. So yeah, that was very quickly embedded into my leadership.
It's so wild to think of. Yeah, again, here you are in the city manager position week one, and now there's this. Literally, I would imagine. So it's not just one business. You said multiple, and so it's a tragedy for especially a town that size, 4,000 people. That would be a huge impact. And then all of a sudden, again, people don't realize when I drive down. I'm in the capital city of Washington State, Olympia. I'm sure that no one thinks about local government as anything to do with businesses downtown.
Right.
They just think, the people just buy, somebody owns it, somebody rents it, and they put a business in, and then it goes out every 6 months, and we have something new. And yet, local gov, all the planning, the infrastructure, and then when you have tragedy like that, who's cleaning that up? Who's and so it is. I think just to highlight. There's a lot of pressure and weight on local gov to try to figure out how do we care for people. You have business owners, you have employees, you have a lot of people. I'm sure that put a stress. And then people also don't realize, and I highlight this, I think we've already talked about, just the missional work that local gov is. You care for a place, and a place is made of people. That's what a community is. And so to have tragedy, how did that look back? Because this is one of the unique things about city county management is it's rare that you become the city county manager administrator of a place that raised you or that you have real strong roots to that you maybe lived in. All of a sudden you're coming into a new city, a new place, even though you were kind of across the highway, but you're kind of the outsider coming in. And then and then you said this place has history. It's kind of maybe a little too rooted in the past. I'm sure that was even more devastating to lose landmarks, to lose kind of that's these smaller places. I interviewed the mayor of Mayfield, Kentucky, and they had the tornado came through downtown and just devastated the entire downtown. And they said the backdrop of City Hall, 100-year-old building, was gone. People would take their prom pictures in front of it. You have all this. And so all of a sudden, where the landscape looks different. It's like you mentioned 9/11. All of a sudden, the Twin Towers aren't in pictures anymore. When you see a movie and they're in the opening credits, you're like, it's weird. It's kind of this eerie, that's right. It's different. And so maybe speak to that. What was that like as the city manager, trying to lead, but also trying to attach yourself to maybe an emotion and a reality that you're kind of the outsider?
I think right off the get-go, a successful local leader really is embedded in the community of which you manage, right? I mean, you really have to understand that you're there on behalf of the people and those who have built their homes, those who have invested in the community, those who have come before you, and the decisions that are all made for the you say people in place, well, for the prosperity of that community. And so I think my management style is such that it's very transparent, let's bring people together. Let's not do things kind of behind the scenes. Let's be fully transparent. Let's listen to those who are rooted in the community. And I think that's where having a strong board, a strong city council really is important. Rely on them. They're the ones who are representing the people who are affected. Make sure they're out in front, right? You don't want to be the face of the community. You want the mayor and the leadership, or the elected, so to speak, to be that. We did it was rough, but we did a really good job bringing people together. Again, really employees who have been there for 20, 30 years, lean on them. They know a lot more than I did, what that community wanted, what that community was talking about. Involve them, make everyone a part of the solution. And you mentioned the market crash of 2008. I think because coming off of that and the way we handled it, when we were making cuts and laying people off and reducing wages, it was easier to do so because we were all bought into moving forward, right? And sometimes you got to take a step back to move forward. 2008 was a great example of that. And we had to take a number of steps back, but we were all part of that decision-making process. And, ultimately the decisions or the recommendations come down to leadership. But I was also very pleased that we had that buy-in, right? People weren't second guessing me or thinking I had alternative motives here with situations. They were aware, right? I mean, it wasn't a big conspiracy that the housing market crashed in Linden. It happened, and so we moved through that together, and yeah, it was good, as good as it could be.
Yeah. I think you just, obviously no one wants tragedy to befall their city, their county, their community, but there are opportunities there to sow seeds of connection, of how you handle those, right? And I think that's something just to shine the spotlight on a local government leader, like again, a city manager. There are plenty of, I'm sure, conversations, meetings, paperwork, grants. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you got to do that could easily shut you up in your office. And the leader, though, even if you're not an extrovert, I don't find many actually extroverts in the city management, county management. I find most of you are introverts, actually. I think you leave the extroverted to the elected. But if you're an introvert, it can be tempting then to just do that administrative work in the office, in City Hall, in the county court, administration office. But it's being among the people. It's building those relationships. It's having that presence. And that, I think, is a constant theme of those I interview on this podcast, where they are intentionally making relationships with people, have open doors. They're going to coffee and just being present. Yeah, you don't maybe need to kiss the babies like the electeds do, but I still think that position needs more community connection. And because of that, especially now, maybe even speak to that, because we're obviously going to get to where you're at now in Newaygo, but in a time of incivility, in a time where I remember growing up in the 80s, it was like lawyers were the most disgusting profession. It's like, oh, the lawyer's gross. Who wants to be a lawyer? And now it's like politics. Like, I think that's become the grossest of, like, everyone in politics is on the dime. They're all embezzling. They're all, trading stocks for their own gain. It's just negative, negative, negative. Well, guess what? That seeps down and has created just this toxic incivility, this toxic negative output towards, again, the people who are supposed to be, which is so sad that kind of everything leaks down from the federal level to the poor local. No one knows even who your local government is, but they must be evil, right? They must be using our taxes for bad. How do you, maybe what encouragement do you have? How, especially when it's kind of like, I want to avoid social media comments. I want to avoid the public, because every time I go, it's just like a beating. How do you stay engaged? How do you still stay intentional with connecting with the community?
Yeah, well, I think being a part of the community is first and foremost. I would encourage all local leaders to be aware of that. And I've always participated with local civic organizations. I was president of Kiwanis in Linden. Lions clubs, United Way, those type of organizations. Get out there and offer to speak at different events. Just be present. I've always said, I say to the public, I say to my employees, you might not like what I have to say, but you're going to hear it from me, right? Let's bypass the keyboard warriors. Let's bypass the social media. Get off social media is another key that I have found in joy of this profession. But just be engaged. Don't be afraid to go out there and tell the story. Explain why something is being done this way, because 9 times out of 10, there's only one side to the story. So make sure our side is being told. Again, they might not like it, but they're going to respect the heck out of you for telling it.
Love that. And so you're going to spend about 5 years in Linden as a city manager, and then you have this blip on the radar. You're going to jump into the private sector. Tell us about this. What was this? Because I think you're going to spend about 5 years in the private sector. What was that about?
I did. Yeah. So I was probably a stereotypical city manager, burnt out to crisp, 60, 70 hours a week, night meetings, weekends, events. I just wasn't finding that much joy. Right. It was just, and so I was approached by a private entity to buy into, it was a small insurance adjusting firm. So we were an independent contractor for the insurance industry to do property adjustments after an event, whether it's a storm, fire, flood. And I think it was a great opportunity. Ultimately, it didn't succeed. So I call it a successful failure, so to speak. But just having that ability to have the other kind of mindset, that private mindset, has really allowed me to have the ability to work with businesses a great deal more, truly understanding the trials and tribulations that they go through. Government budgeting is very difficult. I'll probably get lambasted for this, but it's also fairly easy because we know what our revenue is going to be, right? We know X amount for this year. We have X amount of revenue coming in based on taxes and estimated fees and so forth. Where in the private sector, it's the complete opposite. You have no idea what tomorrow's going to bring and whether you're going to get that check in the mail. So it really provided that opportunity to see how it really works. Give me that additional perspective in the private industry. It was good but bad. Learned the joys of having partners and differences, opinions, and so to speak. But I think it was very instrumental in my career path to kind of dabble in the private sector like I did, to give me that alternative perspective.
Yeah, I think not only a perspective, but the experience, right? Like you said, everything there it's a different world having to all of a sudden, like you say, it's one thing to manage a budget for a city, a county, but yeah, there's stability, you know what it is. And at the end of the day, in whatever position, you know that you're going to get paid. Whereas in the private sector, especially as an owner, you're like, it's on you. Like you have responsibilities, you have employees, you have bills, coming in, other, all the tools it takes to do that. There's a different weight, and what's interesting, maybe speak to, because I love that I think there are also the realities of the pressure, like you said, of city management, county administration, where you are the likelihood of burnout, where maybe there's a lot of hours, and people don't understand that. Like, it is not 9 to 5. You've got evening meetings because all your electeds have jobs, so the only time they can meet is at night. You've got events on weekends. You've got and so you're working just. It's like, and that's why I think I have such a connection to local government leaders. Is a pastor's life is very similar. Like, you don't take off the pastor kind of outfit. You're always a pastor. Even when I'm at my house, people show up and like, Pastor, can you pray? Can you, it's just like, and when I go to the grocery store, I see myself, I'm just sat, getting some tomatoes. It's pastor time. And so it's the same thing. You're always kind of on, whether you're actually at an official event or whether you're just Christopher, at the gym or the grocery store. And that can weigh, especially when you're when you're feeling maybe a negative consequence of something going on. And so I just highlight, especially in kind of the incivility age we're in, especially with like the whole, everyone's got to be Doge and everyone thinks that everyone's corrupt. Gosh, man, these people are trying to do good for you. And that I think I'm concerned that that's having an exodus of some of our best who actually deeply care. And how can residents have some more appreciation, really understand the roles that you guys are in and what work you're doing. But yeah, it's just a unique chapter that gives you more awareness and more kind of like, oh, okay, these are the people because that's the other thing about public sector is it does need private sector partnerships. Like you say, back to the story in Linden, those were private sector businesses that were lost. And those are people we want to come back, to replant, to and so these partnerships, these connections. And so having an awareness of that, feeling the pressure probably gave you some standing then, as now as the county administrator in Newaygo, you're able to connect with them to say, hey, I've been there. I know what that feels like.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
So how did they pull you back in? It's like The Godfather. They pulled you back in, but this time instead of city, you went to county, which is we're going to dive into the uniqueness of that. But how did they just pull you back into public sector?
Yeah. So at the end of my private career, I partners kind of bought me out. It was time to separate. So I had already started to apply for city jobs again, and then kind of started to get the interview process under my belt again. And truthfully, Seth, I never even thought about county government, never once. And I recall getting a random email one afternoon from a firm that had been hired by Newaygo County to find their next county administrator, and just said, hey, your name kind of came up and da-da-da-da-da, and would you be interested? I said, sure, right? Well, I don't know. How hard can county government be? It should be the same as city management. So I actually knew a friend of mine's father-in-law had been county administrator for a number of years. So I called him and kind of, asked some questions. We had a real good conversation, and Next thing you know, I'm getting an interview. And then next thing you know, I'm hired as the county administrator here. So, it was just kind of, again, by chance that I was reached out to. Yeah.
And so Newaygo County is on let's see, is this the west side of the state?
Correct. Yep.
But it's on the east side of Lake Michigan. And
Correct.
So I don't think you touch the lake, but you're very close to
We're one county in. Yeah.
one county in. And again, Lake Michigan should just basically be called an ocean. It's just gigantic. And so the population of Newaygo County, I think, is around 50,000. Is that right?
Yeah. Right now it's estimated about 52.5. We're growing slowly but steadily, which is very good, very positive.
After more than 325 episodes with local government leaders and thousands of conversations on stages and workshops across North America, there is one pattern I keep seeing, regardless of the size, the structure, or even the budget of the organization. The people who are the most technically skilled are often the ones we are promoting into leadership. But then we expect those technical skills to translate. But let's be honest, leading people is a completely different job, a completely different reality. It's like learning a foreign language. When that gap isn't addressed, it shows up everywhere. In communication and accountability, in the very cultures we're trying to create, build, and sustain. And it shows up in the weight those new leaders now have to carry every day. That's exactly why I created the Municipal Leadership Development Circle, or for short, what we call the MLDC. It was built specifically for local government leaders who were promoted for their skills, but never fully prepared to lead people. If you are feeling that gap, or if you're seeing it on your team, in a department, now is the time to address it. Learn more and schedule a conversation at HaltingWinter.com/MLDC. That's HaltingWinter.com/MLDC, or simply use the link in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation. And this is one of these things, like, again, maybe it's because I'm a Pacific Northwest person. So I did my undergrad in Missouri. So I'm familiar with kind of the core Midwest. And I did my first master's degree out in New York. So I'm familiar with the East Coast. But the upper, like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, especially these, you think of Detroit, Michigan, but Detroit's pretty far south. You've got this kind of like, I'm going to be out at the conference in Traverse City. I've never been to that part. That's like Canada. And so it's interesting to kind of get the feel of a place, especially like I remember when I moved to New York for the first time, I thought New York, the entire state, was just pavement. And I'm like, the school I went to was about an hour north of the city. And it's like farms. This is like rural, Amsterdam. I was like, where have I gone to? And so tell us a little bit about Newaygo County. What are the cities, the towns in there? What do people, give us a feel for it.
Yeah. So Newaygo County is a fairly large county. We're about 870 square miles. We have 24 townships in 5 cities, 4 cities, 1 village. Our biggest city, Fremont, is about 5,500 people. So it's still really small on the grand scheme of things. So we're absolutely a rural county. The majority of the northern half of the county is national forest, Manistee, Huron Manistee National Forest. The southern half is very affluent farming country. We actually, Fremont is home to Gerber Baby Foods. So nationally, everyone should recognize that name. So very, very agricultural-esque in that regard. So definitely tourism is our number one industry, followed by agriculture. But a lot of lakes, a lot of rivers, a lot of great fishing, a lot of great hunting. So we bring a lot of tourism into the county.
So then speak to that, because again, we have a lot of city managers and we kind of understand the what a city does and all, but what is a county? I think, when I can't remember if I said this on the recording or when we were chatting before, but when I think about a county, I think of, the sheriff. You got the county sheriff, and then maybe you think about the courthouse. And probably the only reason I think about that, I was just at the county courthouse the other day. My daughter did a mock trial. It's part of her class, and they go in and they pretend they're lawyers and they do this whole scene. And so I was like, oh yeah, the county courthouse. And so but you do a lot more than that. What is, especially with a forest, people,
Yep.
Tell us all about what is under your scope as the county administrator.
Well, maybe I'd start by saying, kind of stole this, but the difference is cities are a government of service, right? Direct service, water, sewer, roads, garbage, kind of that day-to-day activity, where I think counties are more a government of systems. And those systems are in place to support our local municipalities. Those systems are in place to kind of govern a much larger area. So, county government, we have 24 departments ranging anywhere from, like you said, sheriff, jail, to parks and recreation, to emergency services, mental health department, and everything in between, so to speak. So I think probably one of the biggest things that I wasn't aware of is just the scope of service or systems that we provide. It's pretty massive. And then you sprinkle the fact that we have elected officials, right? So we have an elected clerk, an elected treasurer, an elected sheriff, elected judges. So that provides a very, very unique dynamic in terms of managing an organization when you're dealing with electeds who can basically tell you to stick it where, the sun don't shine. And there's nothing you can do about it, really, other than deplete their budget, but that's just going to cause more issues. So, and I really enjoy that aspect of county government is the number of arenas that we play in. I just, right before this meeting, I met with our 911 dispatch director. Right before that, the prosecutor was over here, the county prosecutor. So there's just that vast array of again, I don't want to call them services, even though they are, but of systems that we manage and oversee at the county level.
It's one of the unique things. I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong, you flesh this out, but county, it sits between really city and state. It seems like, again, you're helping with the systems to help those cities, the many you mentioned in your county, operate. And so you have how are we making sure that, right, that there's connectivity? And it's kind of like maybe the cities are the bones and the county is kind of the what is it, the tendon or the tissue, because
Sure.
Again, sheriff's got to interweave in all those unincorporated county places. And
Right.
then what does that look like with the connection? Like, I would imagine, because you have that big forest, is that like state?
Federal forest.
And so then you're connected to federal, because I'm sure that, they have obviously their forest rangers or whatever. But again, I would think that, and one of the other things maybe is roads. And that's where, if you're in your city, I know when I drive down, certain streets, I'm like, the city's got to get their, public works team out here and get this fixed. People rove county and they just think it's usually city. They're like, what's the closest city to this? This is the problem. Right. And it's like, man, county has so many roads, especially when you talk about forest and you talk about tourism with, especially hunting. Like, right. What does that look like? County, federal. And because you're the people, the federal doesn't necessarily they're so, I don't want to say unengaged, but they have
detached.
But they have a detachment because it's not their community necessarily, right?
Right.
And so, how does county work with that? Federal to state to city? It seems like they're a unique kind of maybe glue or kind of the joint that's holding those things together.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. I think a lot of times the county's more of an extension of the state. Roads is a great example. I mean, Newaygo County, we have 2 state highways, M roads. Everything else is a county road. And 800 square miles of county roads is a lot. And it takes a lot of effort and a lot of collaboration to maintain those roads, especially considering most of them are unpaved or dirt. So I think you hit kind of the nail on the head, Seth, where we truly are an extension of the state, whether it's the judiciary with the courts, which is a unique collaboration because the state kind of oversees parts of it. We oversee part of it. The sheriff's department is another great example where we're responsible for every resident in this county. And we have certain areas of the county that are very, very, very rural. We have one township where in Michigan, it's 36 square miles. I think there's a total of 110 residents. But they deserve the same service as everyone else. So, and then providing those additional systems, and we just went through a flooding situation with our main river, the Muskegon River, where it's our responsibility to oversee that, right? And we're an extension of the state, that emergency responsiveness, that ensuring that our residents truly are taken care of in times. So, and again, we don't do everything that's fun. Courts are never a popular topic with our residents, because usually if you're in court, you're not happy about it. And then it's kind of the extension of the cities and the local municipalities, the townships, with tax collection and county equalization, and registering properties through our register's deeds office, and marriage licenses and birth certificates. All those kind of pseudo state government requirements. So, which obviously provides a joyful relationship with the state, because they want to tell us what to do but never fund it. But we'll leave that for another podcast.
I love it.
Chris's opinion of state government.
That's right. Well, we probably share a lot of agreement. I think it is interesting, like you say, a city, at least, when I'm sure the residents, they say, well, I'm from, I went to school in Linden, or, you have an attachment to your city, where I don't know anyone. I mean, I know that I grew up in Snohomish County, but that's all I know. I couldn't tell you anything else. Right. And so I think that's where it is unique, where at least a city, while it takes some of the heat, and, people only are aware of local gov when something breaks, usually, at least they can have some appreciation, because I call it the two realities of infrastructure. A city has the underground, all those services that they provide, but then they have the above ground, which people see, and maybe they'll connect to their city, the parades, the festivals, the kind of fun of the Christmas tree lighting, that maybe, even if they don't necessarily directly attach it to actual official local gov, they'll be like, oh yeah, the city's, Christmas tree lighting. What does the county have? I don't know. Maybe the county fair, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, county fairgrounds. Yeah.
Yeah. The county, besides that, doesn't really have those connectivities that helps people even have an awareness. So it even has, we start out just saying, how do we shine the spotlight on local government, the cool opportunities? People barely think about a city unless they think maybe fire or police. But a county, goodness, there's a ton of opportunities to work for a county. And yet people just have probably no concept of it.
Yeah, and a lot of it, again, goes back to, that direct connection with the residents, right? When your garbage isn't picked up, I remember the good old days of city government when garbage was missed. Holy cow, you would have thought the world was coming to an end. So we don't have that direct connection. Our involvement with residents, most our board meetings, we don't have many residents that attend, unless there's a political situation or an agenda driven. COVID, obviously, with the health department and so forth, was very busy for us. But again, it's that system, ensuring that the county as a whole, that transportation, people are moving or have the ability to move around the county. They have parks and recreational opportunities. They have the ability to access the forest and the amenities that they come here for. That we have the police protection. This senior services is one of our biggest departments. Ensuring that our seniors in this community are taken care of and have a resource if they're homebound and so forth. So really kind of that bigger picture service, not that day to day, but that bigger picture, and again, providing a system as a whole for our county to thrive in its entirety.
And maybe because you said it, and because I'm aware of counties in dealing with public health, but that is one we think about. Sheriff, we know what sheriff is. We can attach police to sheriff. We can attach, public works and roads. But public health, what does a county actually do with public health? Because when I think public health, I think of the hospital. I don't necessarily think of a county. Can you tell us, just to illuminate what a county has to do with public health?
Yeah, so our health department handles everything from sewer or septic tank inspections to, restaurant inspections to a lot of programs, WIC or food stamps, for underprivileged individuals to utilize, health services for those individuals. Then you kind of sprinkle in our relationship with the State Department of Health and Human Services, which handles all the child neglect cases and situations like that, fostering situations. Those are all things that the county directly or indirectly participates in, and it's our responsibility to ensure that those services continue to be provided at a level that is appropriate and adequate.
I would imagine as a county administrator specifically, I've had a couple other county administrators who have been city managers as well, and they say uh, the unique difference between the two is you already hit on it is you have as a city manager you have your elected officials, but in county you have elected basically department heads, and so
Right.
they said the speed is a lot slower. I remember Peter Crichton, famous city county manager in Maine, said city management, a meeting can take 5 minutes. In county management, that same meeting's an hour because I gotta grease the wheels of making sure relationships or no one feels like this is me just telling them what to do. But so there's the internal, a lot of meetings that you have with those internal, but then you said, like again, you said there's state, a lot of overlap in those various cities. I would imagine there's so much of your job is just communication, taking in communication and then communicating and making sure people are rowing kind of in the same direction on the things that are connected to. It's a lot of cat herding, it feels like.
No, absolutely. And you kind of hit on it earlier when you said, I think at times too many municipal managers kind of shut the door and lock themselves in their office and do the work that has to get done. I find very beneficial. Like, I don't sit in my office, drives my assistant nuts when they're looking for me. But just getting out there, I'll walk around campus. I'll go visit the sheriff for a cup of coffee, and just heading off issues before they become truly issues, or having those conversations. Hey, what are you thinking about this? Or, hey, Chris, we've been talking about this. Where do you think that would fit in with your budget discussions this coming year? Really just being present and transparent. I do something that's called, I call it the Wren Road Show. It's a horrible name. I didn't come up with it, but once a year I go out and visit with every county employee in every department. And I sit down and I'm just present, kind of give a state of the county update, but also, hey, if you want to fire off on me, let's go. Right. Let me know what you're thinking. Or, of course, it's always, why is the office so cold or too hot? Or, can you clean the bathrooms, type of thing. But we've also found a lot of success with that because, when comments do come forth and then we react to those comments and make the changes, it really empowers the employees to feel a part of the organization. I think with the elected officials, it goes the same way. Allowing them to be a part of those discussions at kind of the first, second floor makes getting to the top floor a lot easier.
I love that advice, that insight. If you're only meeting with other people in official meetings, you're losing the real truth and you're losing the ability to have real connection. And so those one-offs, those just with the coffee, you're probably getting the real, more so of the behind the scenes of the real flavor. And so, yeah, just to encourage leaders, yes, you have a lot to do. It's easy to stay stuck in the office and strapped to the email, but just to encourage you, how do you make it a priority? Because you probably, some of the issues you're facing could be solved with some of those touch points, whether they're with other leaders, just employees. Even sometimes it's just a matter of them being, I say every human just wants to be seen. Like, do they have worth? Do they have value? And especially in leadership, you're less, I think we don't have to dive into this, but I'll just say one of the things I see in local gov is the development. You become a skilled person, right? You're skilled in a certain department and you get promoted up the ladder and you become a supervisor and you become a leader, maybe a director. But a lot of people struggle with the transition from the skilled doer to the leader of people. And those are two radically different things. The leadership of a position, of a project. Projects don't talk back. Projects don't have bad days. It's just work to be done. And it's easy, I think, for a leader then to get sucked back into that kind of project work instead of going, man, I got to be among people because I'm a person who gives value, who gives that worth, who gives that attention, and who actually makes people feel a part of. Like you said earlier, the key is not being a skilled. I don't have to be skilled at everything. I just need to be the generalist who's leading the ship, right? And letting real skilled people row. Well, you can't do that if you're not out among them, making time to connect.
And I think it's beneficial. I've always said, the parks director needs to know a lot about a little, right? He needs to know a lot about parks. It's my job to know a little about a lot. I need to know just enough about parks and communicate with the parks director on a regular basis to know kind of what's going on, to help facilitate decisions or help facilitate progress when needed. When an issue arises and I've kind of got the background to what's going on, it's a lot easier to address that issue versus just assuming that, hey, I got kicked out of the parks because of X. Oh, you must be right. Well, knowing ahead of time what our basic policies and procedures are and so forth really heads off those minor issues becoming larger ones as well.
So good. I want to be mindful of your time. I always close with kind of a conversation on work-life balance. And you've already said, you had burnout. That's what kind of took you out of the public sector into the private. I had Bridget Granston. She's the county administrator down in Midland. I just love her to death. She's an amazing woman, amazing story. And she talks a lot about this. This is kind of her jam, is burnout. And I always say my quintessential keynote. In fact, I'm kind of doing a specific, I'm modifying one for you guys when I come out. But my big one is balance is BS. There's no such thing as work-life balance. There's just intention. What you need to be intentional professionally, personally, relationally. Maybe speak to, in your story, what did you have to learn experientially to find better intentionality or balance, or what did you learn in that now that you're trying to put into practice to be healthier, to last?
Yeah, I like your comment because I hate work-life balance. Right? If your personal life is balanced equally to your work life, I think you're missing something. Right? Your personal life should carry a lot more weight. I think being burned out and having gone through that, I think one of the biggest realizations is I can't solve everything immediately. Right? It can wait till tomorrow. I don't have to be attached to my email, and I am. We all are. But especially when I'm at home, don't read that email that's going to make you stay up all night long, right? I'll read it in the morning. And I'm very intentional in trying to leave work at a reasonable time. The work will be here tomorrow. And more importantly, is I rely on my staff and my department heads and my leadership to handle it for me. Right? I don't need to intervene on every single decision or problem or issue. I really encourage leadership to make a decision. I think that's a lost art. People are so afraid to make a decision because they might be wrong. And I really encourage wrong decisions. We'll figure it out. Right? Let's make a decision. If it's wrong, so be it. We'll figure it out and we'll fix it and work on a solution. But everything doesn't have to be elevated. And I think we at one point, I felt like I had to be involved with everything. And so I really let that go. And I think it comes with age, experience, but more importantly, it comes with knowing that, geez, I let that go and the world didn't end, right? And then repeating that and having that trust in your leadership and in your people to handle the day-to-day operations. It's not easy, but I have found success in that. And then, you got to separate yourself from work. Drives my wife nuts. How was your day? Fine. That's it? Yeah, it was fine. Let's not repeat everything, right? When I go golfing with the boys, we don't talk about work. I don't want, you got to have that separation. You got to have that ability to reset the mind. Because otherwise, and I do it, we all do it, but what's next, right? Well, I got 18 things on the plate. I got to start thinking about it. Next thing you know, you're up at 2:00 in the morning, texting yourself notes and so forth. I still do it, but I try not to do it as much.
It's really good insight. And I think it is the dichotomy of local government leadership. And it's this way because it's missional work. If it wasn't missional, it'd be easy just to be like, whatever, it's a 9 to 5. I can turn off. You don't want to turn off because you're passionate about the impact and about the work. And so it's this dichotomy, though, of being able to go, yes, but like you said, the county's not going anywhere, right? It doesn't have, Amazon's not the competitor. It's going to move in and take over Newaygo County.
Right.
Like Newaygo County is Newaygo County.
Right.
Fenton's Fenton, Linden's still Linden. It's still there after you left, right? And so I think it's this dichotomy of how can I be missional and impactful, but also remember I am going to one day not be in this position. And not only will I not be in this position, I will most likely be forgotten very quickly.
Very
that's
quickly.
Okay, right? That's okay. That doesn't mean that what you do in the moment while you're there isn't important. It's just not vital. It's not like if I mess this up, everything goes to, no, it doesn't. The county's bigger, the city's bigger. And so it's that dichotomy, I think, and right? It's headspace, especially I love this conversation because young people, I knew that was my story. I was so like, I could not fail and it wasn't because of necessarily me. It was because the people were too important. I cared too much.
Right.
And I went on a sabbatical a number of years ago. And that was my big lesson. When I came back, I go, I think I care too much. And my board looked at me as a pastor. They were like, are you insane? That's what you're paid to do, is care. And I go, but I have to dial it back, because if I care more than everyone, if I care more than the people I'm counseling, they're never going to get better. I'm just going to always be their crutch. And it's the same thing. I think local government leaders can care so much that they don't help the residents go, you got to have some ownership. And electeds, you got to have some ownership. And we all have to own something together so we can make a great place to live.
Yeah. Maybe an ending thought I was told once early on in my profession that one of the most dangerous things in our profession is to become more powerful and more popular than the board of which we represent. And there are times when I see, even today, I head in that direction. And all right, let's back it off. Let's empower the electeds. Let's empower my board to take some ownership and to take some decision making. Right? It's not my job to make decisions. It's my job to make recommendations. And if they don't support that recommendation, I don't take it personal. Right? And let's move on, and we'll go on to the next thing. So.
Really good. Amazing insights. We got to have you on again and dive more into because you've been in Newaygo now for a decade. And so
10 years last week. So
that's awesome. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
Great tenure, great mark. And there's a great insights, I think, that happen when you've been around some elected rotations. You've obviously been through COVID before it and after it. And we could probably talk a whole episode about the change that has brought, and kind of AI now. I mean, there's just all these things happening. So yeah, we'll have you on again, man. Incredible story, Christopher. I can't wait to meet you in person. And yeah, thanks for sharing your life, your leadership, and your journey with us.
Thank you. Really enjoyed my time.
The stories we share here on the Halting Winter podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.